I watched my husband of 5 years slow dance with my own sister while I sat alone at our anniversary dinner. Everyone in that restaurant saw it. Everyone whispered. But what they didn't see coming was how I'd make him pay for destroying our marriage in the most public way possible. If you've ever been betrayed by someone who promised to love you forever, smash that like button and let me know in the comments how you would have handled this situation. My name is Elena, and 3 months ago, I thought I had the perfect marriage. I'm 29, work as a senior graphic designer for a boutique agency, and I was completely devoted to what I believed was my soulmate. Marcus Chen, 31 years old, successful architect, drives a Tesla, lives in the penthouse apartment we bought together. When he proposed to me 4 years ago, at the same restaurant where this story takes place, I thought I was living in a fairy tale. For 5 years, Marcus was everything I thought a husband should be. He remembered every anniversary, brought me coffee in bed every Sunday, and always made me feel like the most important person in his world. He'd design little sketches of our dream house on napkins during dinner, plan surprise weekend trips to art galleries, and he even learned to paint watercolors, just because I mentioned wanting to try it together. My friends envied our relationship, my family constantly praised what a catch he was, and I genuinely believed we were building something beautiful together. But looking back now, I can see the warning signs that I chose to ignore. About 8 months before our anniversary, things started changing. Marcus began staying late at the architecture firm, coming home exhausted and emotionally unavailable. Our deep conversations became surface-level check-ins, more like roommates than lovers. He'd work on his laptop during dinner, claim he was too stressed for our Saturday morning hikes, and worst of all, he stopped touching me the way he used to, like I was precious to him. I kept telling myself it was just career pressure. Architecture is a competitive field, right? He was probably just overwhelmed with deadlines and client demands. I made excuses for the missed dinner dates, the forgotten little gestures, the way he'd roll over when I tried to cuddle at night. I convinced myself that once his big project was finished, we'd reconnect and be stronger than ever. Looking back, I was so desperately naive. Then came the visit that would change everything. My sister Sarah, my only sibling and the person who'd been my best friend since childhood, announced she was moving back to town after finishing her PhD in psychology. She needed a place to stay while apartment hunting, and naturally, I offered our guest room without hesitation. I was genuinely excited to have her close again, after 3 years of long-distance calls and holiday visits. This felt like the perfect opportunity to show her how happy Marcus and I were, maybe even start talking about expanding our family. The moment Sarah moved in, something shifted in Marcus's entire demeanor. He seemed energized, more present than he'd been in months. He started coming home earlier, offering to cook dinner, asking detailed questions about Sarah's research and career plans. At first, I was thrilled. I thought having my sister around was bringing out the best in my husband again. Sarah has always been the intellectual one in our family. She's 27, brunette, works as a therapist, and has this way of making people feel heard and understood that draws everyone to her. During Sarah's second week with us, I started noticing things. Marcus would linger in the kitchen when she was making coffee, offer to help with her job applications, suggest we all watch movies he knew she'd mentioned liking. When I pointed out how helpful he was being, he'd brush it off and say he just wanted Sarah to feel welcome in our home. The lies were so smooth I almost believed them myself. That night, as I lay in bed planning our upcoming anniversary celebration, Marcus was unusually attentive beside me. I thought he was finally coming back to me. I had no idea he was already planning how to shatter our marriage in the most devastating way possible. Our anniversary was supposed to be about celebrating 5 years of love and commitment. Instead, it became the night I learned exactly who the man I married really was, and the night I decided to show him exactly what happened when you betrayed the wrong woman. The evening of our 5th anniversary started perfectly. Marcus had made reservations at Bella Vista, the same upscale restaurant where he'd proposed, where we'd celebrated every milestone in our relationship. I spent hours getting ready, choosing the emerald green dress he'd always said was his favorite, styling my hair the way he loved it. I felt beautiful and hopeful for the first time in months. I couldn't wait to reconnect with my husband over candlelight and wine, to remember why we'd fallen in love in the first place. The restaurant was as romantic as ever. Soft lighting, jazz music, white tablecloths, and our usual corner table overlooking the city. Marcus seemed genuinely present during dinner, asking about my work, complimenting my dress, holding my hand across the table. For 2 hours, I felt like I had my husband back. Then Sarah texted that she was nearby with friends and asked if she could stop by to say happy anniversary. I thought it was sweet that she wanted to acknowledge our special day. Marcus immediately brightened and suggested she join us for dessert and dancing. The live jazz band had just started their evening set, and couples were beginning to move to the small dance floor. When Sarah arrived, she looked stunning in a simple black cocktail dress that somehow made her PhD-level intelligence even more attractive. She hugged us both, ordered a glass of wine, and genuinely seemed happy to celebrate with us. I was touched that my sister wanted to be part of our anniversary, and grateful that Marcus was being so welcoming. The first warning sign came when the band started playing "The Way You Look Tonight," the same song that had been playing when Marcus proposed. I expected him to ask me to dance, to recreate that magical moment from 4 years ago. Instead, I watched in growing confusion, as he seemed completely absorbed in Sarah's stories about her graduate school experiences. When I mentioned that our song was playing, Marcus barely glanced up from his conversation with my sister. When I suggested we dance, he said, "Maybe in a minute," and turned back to Sarah, asking more questions about her research on relationship psychology. It was like I had become a third wheel at my own anniversary dinner. Then the unthinkable happened. Sarah mentioned that she'd forgotten how much she loved dancing, hadn't done it since graduate school ended. And without hesitation, without even looking at me, Marcus stood up and extended his hand to her. "Would you like to dance? It's such a beautiful song." The words felt like ice water in my veins. I sat frozen in my chair, watching my husband of 5 years lead my sister onto the dance floor while our anniversary dessert sat untouched between us. The entire restaurant could see what was happening. Other couples stopped their own dancing to stare. The servers exchanged glances. Even the jazz singer seemed to falter for a moment. This wasn't just thoughtlessness. This was active betrayal happening in real time, in the most symbolic location possible. As I watched them sway together to our song, Sarah's hand on Marcus's shoulder, his arm around her waist, something fundamental shifted inside me. This wasn't the man I married. This wasn't the woman who used to protect me from bullies in elementary school. But instead of falling apart publicly, I felt my professional training kick in. The same strategic thinking that helped me rebrand struggling companies. Marcus and Sarah had just made the biggest mistake of their lives, and they were too caught up in their moment to realize it. I pulled out my phone and started making calls. First, I called my best friend Jessica, who works as a private investigator specializing in matrimonial cases. "Jess, I need you at Bella Vista in 20 minutes with your camera," I whispered. I'm about to hand you the easiest case of your career. Next, I called my lawyer cousin David, who'd handled our prenup and knew every detail of our financial arrangements. The third call was the most important. Marcus's business partner and best friend Alex, who I knew would be devastated to learn what Marcus was doing. Alex had been the best man at our wedding, had given a speech about how Marcus was the most loyal man he'd ever known. He deserved to know the truth. While I was coordinating my response team, Marcus and Sarah continued their dance, completely oblivious to the fact that their betrayal was being documented by Jessica, who'd positioned herself discreetly near the bar. They were so lost in each other that they didn't notice the flashes, didn't see the other diners pulling out their phones to record the drama. When their dance finally ended, they didn't return to our table. Instead, I watched Marcus lean down and whisper something in Sarah's ear that made her blush and nod. They were heading for the exit, leaving me sitting alone at our anniversary dinner like discarded garbage. But they never made it to the door. Marcus Chen, David's voice cut through the restaurant like a blade. My lawyer cousin had arrived right on schedule, briefcase in hand, looking every inch the legal professional he was. I have some documents that require your immediate attention. The entire restaurant went silent as Marcus turned, his face shifting from confusion to recognition to absolute terror. What are you doing here? Marcus stammered, still holding Sarah's hand like a guilty teenager caught sneaking out. Representing my cousin's interests, David replied calmly, opening his briefcase. Elena, would you like to tell your husband what you've discovered about his extracurricular activities? Or should I start with the financial documents? That's when I stood up, walked over to where they were frozen near the restaurant entrance, and delivered the speech I'd been mentally rehearsing for the past hour. Marcus, meet your divorce attorney's worst nightmare. While you were busy destroying our marriage in public, I've been busy protecting myself. Jessica has documented everything. David has already filed preliminary papers. Alex knows what kind of man you really are. And Sarah. I turned to my sister, who looked like she was about to be sick. I've already called Mom and Dad. They are waiting for you at home. Apparently, sleeping with your sister's husband wasn't covered in your psychology PhD. The restaurant was completely silent except for the jazz band, who had stopped playing mid-song to watch the drama unfold. Marcus tried to stammer out explanations, apologies, justifications. Sarah was crying, reaching for me, trying to explain that it just happened, that they never meant for it to go this far. The beautiful thing about betrayal, I said, loud enough for the entire restaurant to hear, is that it reveals exactly who people really are. Marcus, you wanted to humiliate me on our anniversary. Congratulations. You've succeeded in humiliating yourself in front of everyone who matters. I picked up the anniversary gift I'd brought him, a vintage watch engraved with "Forever Yours." But here's what you didn't count on. I'm not the naive woman who made excuses for your distance and your lies. I'm the woman who built a successful career by anticipating problems and creating solutions. And you, my dear soon-to-be ex-husband, just became my most successful project yet. I handed the gift box to Jessica. Evidence, I said simply. Then I turned to David. How long before the restraining order takes effect? Already active, he replied, checking his watch. Mr. Chen has exactly 1 hour to collect his personal items from the apartment before law enforcement escorts him off the property permanently. The look of absolute devastation on Marcus's face was almost enough to make me feel sorry for him. Almost. But then I remembered sitting alone at our anniversary table, watching him dance with my sister to our song, and every ounce of sympathy evaporated. Sarah, you have 30 days to find somewhere else to live, I continued. I've already changed the locks. And Marcus, that prenup you insisted we sign. The one that protects your precious architecture firm. Well, turns out adultery voids those protections. David will be in touch about asset division. I hope one dance was worth half of everything you own. The entire restaurant erupted in whispers and phone cameras as I walked back to our table. I sat down, picked up my wine glass, and raised it toward the crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for witnessing the end of my marriage and the beginning of my much better life. Dinner is on my soon-to-be ex-husband. Order whatever you want. The applause started slowly, then built into a roar that followed me out of the restaurant. 3 months later, the divorce was finalized. Marcus lost the apartment, half his business, and his reputation in our social circle. Sarah moved across the country, and we haven't spoken since. The family sided with me unanimously after seeing Jessica's photos and witnessing Marcus's behavior firsthand at the restaurant. Marcus tried to contact me dozens of times, claiming it was a mistake, that he was confused, that Sarah had manipulated him. But I knew the truth. He'd shown me exactly who he was when he thought I was powerless to stop him. The man who'd promised to love and honor me had learned that betraying me was the biggest miscalculation of his entitled life. I'm not telling you this story for sympathy. I'm telling you because sometimes the people we trust most are the ones most capable of destroying us. But more importantly, I'm telling you that you never have to accept betrayal silently. You don't have to smile and pretend everything is fine while someone dismantles your dignity piece by piece. Sometimes the best revenge isn't moving on quietly. Sometimes it's making sure the person who hurt you faces consequences that match the magnitude of their betrayal. Sometimes it's showing them that underestimating you was their fatal mistake. Marcus wanted to make me invisible at our anniversary dinner. Instead, he made himself disappear from my life forever. And honestly, that's the best anniversary gift he ever gave me. 3 months later, I'm successful, independent, and surrounded by people who actually value me. Meanwhile, Marcus is still dealing with the professional and personal fallout from that night. The architecture firm dropped him as a partner when the scandal affected their reputation. His family cut contact after learning the truth. And Sarah? Well, apparently their great love story lasted exactly 2 weeks after our divorce was finalized. Turns out betraying your family for a man who betrays his wife isn't the foundation for lasting happiness. The best part is that Bella Vista Restaurant now knows me as the anniversary lady, and I get the VIP treatment every time I eat there. The staff witnessed everything and they've become my biggest supporters. They even named a cocktail after me. The Elena. It's described on the menu as sweet at first, with a finish that will knock you out. If you're going through something similar, here's what I learned. Document everything, trust your instincts, and never let anyone convince you that you're overreacting to betrayal. The people who love you will support you. The people who don't weren't worth keeping anyway. And sometimes, making someone face the consequences of their actions is exactly the closure you need. Marcus thought he could humiliate me and walk away unscathed. Instead, he learned that destroying someone who trusted you completely comes with a price. A very public, very expensive, very permanent price. Thanks for watching, and remember, never let anyone make you feel invisible. You're worth so much more than that. Oh, and if you're wondering what happened to that vintage watch I was going to give him, I sold it and used the money for a solo trip to Paris, where I learned to paint watercolors by myself. Turns out, I didn't need him for that either. Like and subscribe if you want to hear more stories about taking control when life tries to break you down. Trust me, There are more where this came from.